So, this is the homeostasis lecture. Obviously, this first slide is not about homeostasis, but it's just a little reminder about how we measure things in science, which anatomy is a science, obviously. So, as we're talking about things staying in a homeostatic range, we might be talking about measurements. So, just as a reminder, meters measures length. Meters, centimeters, millimeters, kilometers, all of that is length. Kilograms or grams measures mass. Liters, it's not on here, measures volume. There are some different ways of measuring volume in the medical realm. So just be aware of that. Seconds measure, of course, time. And Kelvin measures temperature. But in anatomy, of course, we will use Celsius instead. That's what's used in medicine as well. So if you've been to the doctor and they've taken your measurements, they've likely measured you in meters and kilograms and Celsius temperature. So just a quick reminder there. Now we'll get into homeostasis. So you might remember this word homeostasis from biology. We talked about it there. We're going to talk about it a lot this year. So the word homeostasis comes from the Greek. Homeo means unchanging, and then stasis is standing, like static, unmoving. So homeostasis is the maintenance of a stable internal environment. So for all living things, there are certain conditions where they need to stay in order to survive. So if they get too far out of range, then like proteins start breaking down, systems stop working, and that can be bad. So in order to maintain homeostasis, your body has, or all living things' bodies really, have these self-regulating systems called homeostatic mechanisms. Okay, and they are constantly taking in information and then making adjustments to try to keep the body within a certain range. So we'll talk about how this works in just a second. So you're constantly undergoing all these little adjustments in order to make sure that your body is staying in this homeostatic zone. So the regulatory mechanisms, in order to do that, to make those adjustments, there are 3 parts. Okay, so there's always a receptor, something that's taking in information about the environment, the internal environment generally. And then there's the control center, which knows, quote, what the set point is. So that kind of oversees where the body should be. and then the effector can produce the response. Okay, so I'm going to write all that down. So the receptor takes in information, stimulus about the internal environment. That information goes to the control center, like in the brain, compares the input to a set point, and then signals, E for effector. The effector, generally they're glands or muscles, and so they can do something to alter internal conditions. So next we will look at an example. Okay, so here we have an image. The first example is with a thermostat, and then looking at how a human would react. Okay, so for the thermostat, the way thermostats work, they have a set point, so you set the temperature, and then the temperature kind of fluctuates around that set point. So when it gets too cold, the furnace turns on, the thermostat activates it, produces heat, the room warms up, furnace shuts off, room cools down, then the heat turns back on. So you're always, you have your set point here, and then the conditions are kind of always fluctuating around the set point. So you're not like staying exactly at that point, never moving. You're just always moving around the set conditions. So in the other picture, you can see that their graph is nicer than my graph. So you can see the set point is at 37 degrees Celsius. If you were to, say, go outside and run, your temperature would increase. So what happens? You have vasodilation. Your blood vessels dilate, so you might turn red. That allows heat to escape through your skin. You might sweat. That allows for evaporative cooling to occur. And so that's going to bring your body temperature back down. Now, imagine that it's winter, and you go outside and you don't have warm enough clothes on. Or maybe it's summer and you go somewhere where it's super air conditioned. Either way, you get cold. So your body temperature decreases. Okay, and so what that does is it causes vasoconstriction. Your blood vessels get smaller. And then so that kind of keeps the blood more into the interior of your body to keep it warm. You might shiver because your muscles give off heat. And so then your temperature goes back up to the set point. Okay, so you're constantly making all these little adjustments to stay right around your optimal conditions.